Hello, everyone, and welcome to Prostar's channel. Just wanted guys to let you know what we're going to be doing here. We'll be doing interviews, talking about company updates, industry updates, and introducing members of the team. So who better to start us off than President and CEO Paige Tucker? Paige, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, thank you. I appreciate you asking.
Good. I'm glad to have you on and kind of dive into it. Let's paint a picture of yourself a little bit for people. Either start with your education or what really got you interested in business in the first place.
Well, I went to school at San Francisco State, and so my first job was actually in the Silicon Valley. I developed an application that allowed me to integrate into old mainframe computers so that I could extract data out of those computer systems because the data is obviously gold. This was customer data for automotive dealers so that I could identify exactly who was doing business either through the sales or the service department. And then as a result of that, I got introduced to geographic information systems, GIS mapping systems. And what I was able to do then is basically overlay the data of the customers with GIS system and map out where those customers were actually located and then prioritize zip codes. So I could really identify where the dealers were creating their footprint because they were relying on a lot of statistics, and in some cases those stats weren't correct. So, basically data doesn't lie. It'll tell you exactly what's going on within any business or industry.
Yeah, hang on. Let me get in there for a second. So when was this? Was this before data was really known as the gold mine it is today?
Somewhat, yeah. I was somewhat of a pioneer when it came to data mining. This would have been in the early 90s. And then as a result of that, CRM applications became a buzzword, customer relation management systems. And because of my background, obviously, in data and in GIS, it was only natural that I would then dive into developing a CRM application and actually develop the first web-based CRM application for the automotive industry with a company that I started with a partner. So I was co-founder, and we called that company e-auto business, which eventually was acquired.
Okay. Or were you an auto type guy? Did you like vehicles? Is this just kind of where you wound up, where you saw the need that you could really fulfill?
Yeah, I'm somewhat a car guy. I love cars, and so it was natural that I get involved in the automotive industry. Plus, it's a really fast-paced sort of business model, and I kind of liked that. It was very challenging, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, the automotive industry is also a gigantic industry with plenty of headwind to go with there. It's always going to be around, and people are always going to need vehicles. Therefore, there will always be plenty of data to look at and figure out what the next move is.
Exactly.
All right, so kind of moving on then. So then, where did you go from there?
So once that business sold, being a serial entrepreneur, I was wondering, okay, what am I going to do next? And I actually grew up in northern British Columbia and spent a lot of time working in the oil and gas industry, particularly when I wasn't going to school, either during the summer or the winter. And one of the issues working in the pipeline industry, especially pipeline construction, is a lot of times you'll be out working in these large camps in remote areas, and you end up hitting another pipeline, and you had no idea that that pipeline was there. And when you hit a pipeline, then you got to shut the job down. The environmentalists have to come out and see what the impact was, on the environment. And as a result of my background in data mining and also GIS, and then combine that with knowing a great deal about the oil and gas industry, it was only natural for me that I start a business where I could utilize my background, my knowledge, and create a technology that could identify where utilities and pipelines were buried into the ground, and then a system that could display the location so that people could avoid hitting utilities and pipelines. It's one of the reasons why the company is called Prostar, very similar and named after OnStar.
Makes sense. That's such a good solution that I'm surprised it didn't exist before that. So you really you really solved a very serious issue. I see, I didn't even know that pipelines would run into each other like that. That sounds like, I guess, an operational disaster that wasn't something that was previously handled.
Well, just to give you some stats, and that's a good point. I like to just provide stats because it put things into perspective. So there's about 2.5 million miles of paved roads that
Mhm.
crisscrosses the United States. Um, there's over 35 million miles of buried utilities and pipelines. And those
Wow.
utilities and pipelines are generally buried underneath those paved roads or along our railway systems because they're like natural right-of-ways, and that's basically where they place the utilities and pipelines.
Wow. Okay, so there's a whole world going on underneath the ground there that a lot of people are not aware of.
A whole nother world. And in fact, there's a lot of discussion right now as far as infrastructure in the United States, and spending anywhere between, $1 to $2 trillion to upgrade our roads, bridges, our highways, and our railway systems because they're becoming dilapidated and in serious need of repair and replacement. Well, number one, you can't work on anything on the surface without impacting what's buried below the ground. But part of that infrastructure bill is also addressing our water systems and also sewage systems, which are starting to deteriorate. But if you think our roads, bridges, and highways and railway systems are becoming dilapidated and in serious need of repair and replacement, you can imagine the infrastructure below ground that in some cases was put into the ground over 100 years ago and we can't see it. By the time we realize there's a problem or there's an issue with the underground infrastructure, it's too late. You either have flooding or we've got petroleum products that are leaking into our water systems. So yeah, it's a big problem and it needs to be addressed.
Yeah, I guess the philosophy of out of sight, out of mind isn't exactly a good thing to go with when it comes to our pipes and stuff underground.
No, not at all. And the way that we have mapped or recorded the location of where these utilities and pipelines are is not very accurate. So also the close enough is no longer good enough. I mean, we
Yeah.
need to know the precise location of where these utilities and pipelines are and the condition. So the system that Prostar has developed is just for that. I mean, to precisely capture, record, and display and manage, where these utilities and pipelines are located.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't even, again, it's interesting how little your average person really knows about this stuff when it comes to, I'm sure we just thought there was a map and it was completely accurate, but it makes sense that now the technology has advanced so much. You have people like yourself who get, I guess I would call it the entrepreneurial spark, where you recognize a problem and then you feel enthralled to kind of go on and fix that problem. So I want to dive deeper into the business maybe on the next one, but just to top this off for everybody. So, what do you do on the day to day while working with ProStar? Just kind of walk people through your day.
Well, generally, I'll come in the morning and I'll have a sales and marketing meeting just to see what activities we have going, during the day. Our sales pipeline is starting to fill up. Our name, our and brand awareness is starting to become somewhat more recognized in the market. And because we've got some large companies now that are starting to adopt our technology, they're starting to influence other companies
Hmm.
to take a look at what we're doing. So it's getting a little busier. We're also a publicly traded company, so there's lots of meetings I have either with our CFO or our chief operating officer, and then I spend usually a few hours during the day, meeting with brokerage firms and investors, and then of course we have public relations, campaigns. So yeah, I stay pretty busy throughout the day.
Yeah, that's the thing when you're running a company that's publicly traded, it's like you're running two companies, right? You got the public side of it, and then just actually keeping operations moving and going.
Well, that's just it too. And there's so many ideas that I have and so many things that I would like to develop, into the system. So I sit down with the developers as well and just get an idea on where we are and what they're working on. And I try not to influence too much anymore. what we're developing, into the system, because now we're starting to get the feedback from the market. So it's more customer driven than it is driven by, ideas that I might have.
That's fair. That's fair. Yep. And basically, if you're the CEO, just hire people smarter than you and put some faith in them, right? That's what.
That's definitely what I've done. I mean, I've surrounded myself with people that are much smarter than me, and in particular, on their core competency. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with the people that I've been able to attract and hire.
Perfect. Well, Paige, thank you so much for coming on, and thank you everyone for watching. If you have any questions for Paige or anyone else on the team we might be able to squeeze on, let us know. We'll be happy to get an answer over to you. And stay tuned because, like I said, coming up next will be a deep dive into the company itself and what it gets into. Paige, thank you so much for coming on.
My pleasure. Thank you.